Hi everybody, it's Chris, and welcome to another video by the Infinity System. Today's episode is going to be a little different from our usual stuff. As you guys know, and we've told you, we read each and every one of your questions that you guys post. We may not always get back to you right away or drop our thoughts on it just simply because we're busy a lot of the time, but we do read them carefully, and we do like to reply to them as best we can. But every once in a while, a comment will come along that will pop out at us that kind of deserves further direct reflection, as it were. So we've decided that every once in a while, when one of these pops up, we're going to take the time to answer it directly. So that's what we're going to be doing today. And today's comment comes from Arden Marie, who writes, very proud of you for sharing your pieces of yourself in this online community, a brave and healing experience for us all. You're welcome. We tend to talk about icky things that nobody really wants to talk about, but if you guys are having fun with the channel and it's providing a resource for you guys, yay! We kind of suck at taking compliments, so but thank you. If it does help somebody, then it's worth it. Let's see. My question on your live stream about how your age affected your diagnosis is such an interesting perspective to me. I think that was the last live stream that we did, so those of you not familiar with what she's talking about, I think it was the last one or the one before that. But it seems the universe and yourself took care of you enough to reveal this information when you were ready. Yeah, I guess. Not sure. We had no idea until a little over 2 years ago, so everything happens in their own good time, we guess. We certainly weren't looking for it, or had any idea that it was there. But yeah, everything goes around that comes around for a reason, so here we are. I would love to hear more information on how the societal cues you internalized at a young age, and how that relates to your mindfulness training, diagnosis, and further realizations. There's a second part to this, but we'll get to the first part first. We grew up in the early 1970s, which was very much a time of change. You were basically seeing the beginnings of the sexual revolution, the rise of the LGBTQ movement, the basic death of the nuclear family unit, and what would now be called the boomer way of life. As Gen X kids, we were caught in between these two extremes. We had our grandparents, the boomers, on one side, and everything that they represented in their lives and that stability, and then we had the other side with our hippy-dippy parents, who were into the counterculture and stuff at that time. So a lot of 80s kids, and particularly us, without going into too many details, we were exposed to a lot of mixed messages and a lot of negative influences and messages. So that definitely had an impact on it. But it's not all negative or positive on either side. You have to draw a bit from each, or at least we did. From the boomer side, our grandparents, they provided the only stability really that we had in our lives that kept us alive. Those 2 to 4 weeks that we would go to spend with them every summer took us out of our abusive environment, and for the first time we felt safe. And that was the only place that we felt safe, was with our grandparents at their house. So in that case, it was a positive. But by the same token, my grandfather was not the type that he would cry. I saw him cry exactly twice in his life. Men of his generation were not taught to or encouraged to find their feelings or express them. That just really wasn't done. And he was very stoic, but he also had his prejudices of his time. So on the one hand, we had the stabilizing influence with outdated opinions, and on the other hand, we have the completely unstable influence with disparate media influences and the counterculture and sexual influences, but an open-mindedness towards things like meditation, spiritualism, and what would eventually come on to be known as mindfulness. So those influences enabled us to more readily accept those positive elements of the counterculture and that change in our society. But being a Gen Xer was very much to be caught in between the two worlds, and we grew up pretty fatalistic because, and this is where the second part of the question comes in. Hold that thought for just a sec. She says she's been thinking of how, or they, apologies, we're assuming, I've just been thinking of how tenets of capitalism, loneliness, and this work until you break attitude seriously impacts mental health and our true awareness of ourselves, which not only damages ourselves, but the body of our planet. You just summed up the 1980s in a nutshell and made our next point. Because we were caught between those two extremes, we went looking for the stability that we had with the freedom that we weren't getting what we needed from either side. So Gen X, we basically embraced whatever we could find. The bright, shiny object syndrome. It became about capitalism and the acquisition of things to fill that empty hole inside of you that was there because you've got a fractured home of alcoholics and or drug abusers on one side and your grandparents on the other who are stable but are completely out of touch and totally don't get it and living in the 50s. What are you going to do? And then you add on top of that all of the global political pressures. We were in the middle of the hot Cold War with Russia. Every single Gen X kid basically expected to be nuked into oblivion before our 31st birthday. It was just how we perceived things. I mean, hell, when the TV special The Day After came out, I remember the impact that had. And that will forever be stuck in my memory because that's what we were raised with. So the capitalism and the loneliness, which then brought on the acquisition of the next thing, you know, you have to keep on that trend of, oh, I just picked up an Atari 2600. Oh, okay, well, crap, you know. Oh, I just picked up the SNES. I just picked up this. It starts this cascading of effect where you're looking for material things to satisfy that empty gnawing hunger that you got inside of you. So why did we do it? Why did we impact our mental health and our true awareness of self? Because we didn't know any better. As a society and as a species, we are growing, and we are moving beyond what we like to call the infancy stages and beginning to glimpse for the first time our real purpose here on the planet, which is as a species in a closed-loop environment, and we have been put here and given the ability to care for that environment and for the creatures that inhabit it, including us. Kind of important not to F up the planet that you're living on. You know, so it's time for us to grow up and get out of that capitalism and the loneliness that goes along with it. And as we move ahead and as we begin to change our lifestyle and the way that we look at our planet and the way that we treat the environment and the way that our technology will advance and expand and adapt to that, to where we can enjoy all of the same comforts and conveniences, just in a responsible fashion. That's where we're going, or at least where we should be going, and that will help with the true awareness of ourselves and where we fit on the planet. This has nothing to do with religion or hippy-dippy. It's simple science, it's simple fact. We live in a closed-loop ecology. We are part of that ecology. Everything in the fishbowl is going to stay in the fishbowl except us. We can hike it to another fishbowl if we want. But we need to learn to take care of the one that we're in first. Fighting amongst ourselves about politics and religion and this and that and the other thing, skin color. Why are the fish in the bowl fighting? Alright, so that's enough of that there. Why has our society internalized and accepted these lies and exploitations? We just covered it. This pandemic has realized many things and brought down many misconceptions. Yes. Ironic, isn't it, that at the point in history where we need to refocus ourselves, to obtain that outside perspective of ourselves as a species, happens to come along. Back in the 1980s, Ronald Reagan made an interesting speech to the United Nations. And this has actually been taken out of context by the UFO folks, but he said, I've often wondered if a threat from outside our planet or a global threat would cause to, we're paraphrasing, would cause the human species to come together. And that's always kind of stuck in our mind. And now here we are facing that moment, not only on a historical level, a personal level, a spiritual level, an environmental level. Now is a critical point in time. And we need to be more open-minded. We need to be more accepting of each other and look at ourselves. Neurotypicals, neurodiverse. Black, white, yellow, red, gay, straight, you name it. We're all human beings. It's time for us to get out of our diapers. So, the last part of her comment here is actually praise. I really appreciate and trust your voice and would love to hear any perspective or relationship your system could find further. Proud to be a recipient of your all story and perspective. Stay safe and you are secure. Take care. Thank you very much. But there's one more telling bit down here that's worth addressing. She writes in a second comment, sorry, it's going to be up here. Sorry, but your Egyptian print made me think of it, but it's mainly Western recent tenets. Many ancient societies knew how to take care of themselves and the people on any/many spectrums. Yes, absolutely. There are a great number of ancient societies that believed that the mentally ill were in fact special, touched by the gods and closer to them because of their mental illnesses. Rather than being shunned and exiled and medicated or pushed away, they were actually treated honorably, provided for, and treated as special. Many of them would often go on to become the shamans or the spiritual leaders of the various peoples. There's many, many evidences of this. If you're interested in it, look up a book called The Golden Bough by a gentleman named Fraser. It's from about 1908, but it's a fascinating book on all of the various ancient cultures and myths and how all of that comes to being and rise. So, Arden Marie, we hope that answers your question. We hope that we didn't lose all of you guys in all of that rambling. But like we said, this was kind of be a bit of a different episode. So we hope that you enjoyed it. Arden Marie, we hope that we answered your questions somewhat. The rest of you, if we gave you something to chew on, something to think about for the rest of the day, great. If not, hey, thanks for watching. And on that reminder, we want to remind all of you that you are loved, that you are strong, and that you're not alone. I'm Chris. Thanks for watching.